This podcast is brought to you by eHarmony, the dating app to find someone you can be yourself with. Why doesn't eHarmony allow copy and paste in first messages? Because you are unique, and your conversations should reflect that. eHarmony wants you to find someone who will get you. How are you going to know who gets you if people send you the same generic conversation starters they message everyone else? Conversations that actually help you get to know each other. Imagine that. Get who gets you on eHarmony. Sign up today.
As a person with a very deep voice, I'm hired all the time for advertising campaigns. But a deep voice doesn't sell B2B, and advertising on the wrong platform doesn't sell B2B either. That's why if you're a B2B marketer, you should use LinkedIn ads. LinkedIn has the targeting capabilities to help you reach the world's largest professional audience. That's right, over 70 million decision makers all in one place. All the big wigs, then medium wigs, also small wigs who are on the path to becoming big wigs. Okay, that's enough about wigs. LinkedIn ads allows you to focus on getting your B2B message to the right people. So, does that mean you should use ads on LinkedIn instead of hiring me, the man with the deepest voice in the world? Yes. Yes, it does. Get started today and see why LinkedIn is the place to be to be. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room? It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together, we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th. We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
And welcome back to Scarred for Life, the podcast where we open up old wounds by looking back at the films that scared us as kids. I'm Terry.
And I'm Mary Beth.
And each episode, our special guest brings with them a movie that traumatized them as a child.
This week, our guest is Ryan Glover. He's a writer, director, and cinematographer whose latest film, the quietly haunting cosmic horror The Strings, is now available on Shudder. Welcome to the show, Ryan.
Thanks for having me. I'm really stoked to be here.
We're
really excited to have you.
We were talking before we started recording about how Terry and I watched this movie not at the most recent Salem Horror Fest, but the one in 2020, and how much we've loved the movie since then. And it's so exciting. 13 months later, it's coming to Shudder.
Yeah, we're so excited and nervous and everything about it. Just watching our bodies live our lives since it was announced, pretty much.
You're like, I am not connected to my physical form. I'm just here.
Exactly. It's that anxious ghost hovering over myself.
Looking in the window, you know. Okay, so before we do get to talk about The Strings, let's take it back to the beginning. How did you get introduced to horror?
For me and I guess my two brothers, I have a twin brother actually, it was all our mom's doing. It was just her showing us movies from, probably too young, and that was it. When we were growing up, it was Saturday night was movie night. So, when we were in elementary school, it was here's Poltergeist, here's Jaws, here's E.T., here's Amityville, and stuff like that. And it was just, pretty traumatic at times. And sort of that was it. It was mostly my mom. She loved movies like that, like Jaws and Alien. Alien was one of the first two for sure.
Wow. Do you remember how old you were probably when you saw Alien?
Alien might have been like the second scary movie we ever saw, I feel like.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think it was like Poltergeist and then like Alien, like maybe Jaws was in there too, but I think Alien might be my mom's like favorite movie.
Wow, what a trifecta of young horror movies to watch.
Yeah,
good lord.
For sure. And Poltergeist was the one that like ruined my life for like 2+ years for sure.
Oh, did it?
Every night, like the closet just past the foot of my bed, it was like that was it. It was like covers up to the ears and just like afraid of my closet. And when eventually I got a television in my room, afraid of the television, like that movie just lingered. And I don't know why, because like it is like big and like dramatic and like you wouldn't expect most of the things in that movie to be possible, but for some reason it was just like getting sucked into my closet was like it was gonna happen, essentially. I was convinced.
But I was the same way with that movie. Like that movie made me terrified of my closet for so long. Like I'm still a little bit suspect of closets now.
Yeah.
But like when I saw it, I was terrified of my closet when I was younger. Like that was a movie, like I said, scarred me for life. Like that and Jaws were two, but Poltergeist ruined me.
Yeah.
Like it just gets into your head, especially when you're young enough, like to be like, something innocuous as your closet is home to so many horrific things. Like, nope.
Yeah. And then I guess, so after like the intro, it was like when we were old enough to have like sleepover birthday parties, it was like you went to Blockbuster and it was 7 tapes for 7 nights. And like, that's what it was. Just nonstop, just like every cool box art you could find. We just rented it. It
was the best time.
Seriously.
Just
go to Blockbuster, and then there's your movies for the week.
We had a really cool jumbo video. I don't know if that's a Canadian thing or not, but and their horror section was this big wooden castle all year round. It was like a spooky haunted castle that you got to like walk into.
That's amazing.
And it was just all
that's so
you know VHS tapes facing you, and it was just rented everything.
That's incredible. And so, okay, so you talked about, like, you saw Poltergeist and Alien and Jaws, but what were some of your favorites growing up outside of those, like the first ones that you watched?
The whole Alien trilogy was like, that was it for sure. And like, and Ghostbusters and like Jurassic Park and stuff. Definitely. But we were like obsessed with the Alien trilogy and got into like comics and stuff that way. I remember our Blockbuster.
Did you read the Alien comics?
We would buy and like read all those at the comic shop for sure. And I remember like going to the Blockbuster and ours had a copy of the VHS trilogy like under lock and key, like in the display case somewhere. And so eventually like we had a paper route, so like we had enough money to go buy like the Alien box set, and Blockbuster was like, we can't sell this to you because you're like 11 years old. So we like literally had them call our mom at work and was like, we're not leaving without this box set. So like, you're gonna have to call my mom and she'll explain everything. And like literally we got to leave Blockbuster with that box set, and it was like our prized possession for sure.
That is amazing.
I love that a Blockbuster employee called your mom at work to make sure that you could have the VHS box set. That's incredible.
Which is your favorite of the Alien movies?
The first one is my favorite, and then I know this is like controversial, but like the assembly cut of the third movie is like literally like just below the first one these days.
Okay.
I watched the assembly edit of the third one like constantly.
It's good.
It's great. And like the way it's shot and lit and how depressing it is, and it's like 2 hours and 40 minutes long or something.
And it's completely nihilistic, and it's just it's depressing as fuck. And I mean, like I have a whole relationship to that movie because I feel like it is a metaphor for the AIDS epidemic at the time. Like I think that movie is so good.
It's fantastic.
I skipped 3 and watched Resurrection. I haven't seen 3.
You haven't seen 3?
No.
Okay.
I haven't. I've seen 1 and 2.
We're gonna have to remedy that.
Skipped 3, and then I watched 4, which is Resurrection is fucking ridiculous, but it was fun because it's so dumb.
That was a big deal when that one came out. That was a pretty big deal for sure. Like we had waited a long time for Resurrection to come out, so in our household it was massive. And then it was the same when Prometheus came out. Like our whole family from different, like we all went to the IMAX to go see Prometheus like the first weekend.
I love that.
So, what'd you guys think?
It's like a family bonding experience over chest-bursting aliens.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Nothing brings you together like parasitic aliens.
Yeah, absolutely.
What did you guys think of Prometheus, though? Like, what was the reaction when you guys came out of the theater? Was it disappointment, or did you like it?
I mean, I'm sure, like, my mom and dad were probably like, yeah, it was good. Like, we were all, like, we're all filmmakers or in the industry in one way or shape or another. So, like, we had thoughts, as people would say. I've come to, like, rewatch it a lot and enjoy it for what it is. And it has some interesting ideas. And some of it, is what it is. And it's Prometheus.
You're being so kind.
I don't know.
I do like Prometheus. I like Prometheus a lot. For what it is.
It's a messy movie.
It's messy, but I thought it's still pretty cool and pretty gross.
It's pretty cool. Yeah. We went to in Scotland, we were in Scotland for my brother's wedding. We made sure to go to like the caves from Prometheus and like see them.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's so rad. A good wholesome alien family.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. Okay, so as an adult now, what would you say draws you to the genre?
It's just like, I don't know. It's comforting in like a bizarre way. And then I just think it's like such a cinematic genre because like for me, like I'm not like lots of dialogue and like talking and acting and stuff like that. Like I really like movies that are like wholly cinematic. And I think genre like uses music and cinematography and I think it can tell really interesting stories because, they're fantasy at the end of the day, most of them. So I think it just brings everything that I like in movies like to the forefront, I think. And I like to be scared. Like I love that feeling of complete panic. And like, I make movies, I know exactly how they do what's happening on the screen, but still like there are those like heart-stopping moments in the rare film that comes out these days. And that's what I'm looking for sure.
So you still get scared watching horror movies?
Yeah, some of them.
Cool.
There was that chunk in the middle of the night house that we watched last weekend that stopped my heart. Like that was scary.
There's some good moments.
There's some really good moments in that movie.
Yeah. And then, we went to Deep House and that had like some pretty wacky movie. Like it had a couple moments that got us pretty good. So yeah, I still get scared, but the ones that like truly haunt me are few and far between.
Do you remember the last movie that haunted you?
The last movie that like
in that way
did to me what Poltergeist did to me was the first Paranormal Activity, probably.
Okay.
Oh my God, we are very similar because that movie also like absolutely wrecked me. Yeah, and that was one of the last times I remember being terrified.
Yeah, it was like Poltergeist, and then it was Seeing the Ring in theaters, and then it was Paranormal Activity. Those were like the three that for weeks I would wake up and I'd be like horrified.
So I mean the three you just chose are all kind of ghost movies. Do you believe in ghosts? Is that what about it do you think terrifies you?
I have no idea if I believe in ghosts at all. I'm not religious whatsoever.
Yeah, same.
I don't believe that there's like souls with unfinished business walking around. But I don't know. I think that's what's cool about like movies that hint at like maybe it's some kind of weird like dimension slippage or time dilation or something like. I like ideas like that. But yeah, I don't know. They still scare me. They always have. Like supernatural is what has done it, and it doesn't seem to really matter if I truly believe it in the cold light of day or not. It's still.
That's why I was curious because the movies that honestly that I remember like being terrified at a lot of times are supernatural or ghosts, even though I don't. As people who listen to the podcast know, I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in the supernatural, but it's like movies that have ghosts. I don't know. Maybe it's because they can be more inventive and you're not expecting it. And then it jumps. I don't know. But for me, so that's why I was kind of curious because they are the ones that scare me all the time.
I also think it's like if something like that happens to you, like, what are you going to do? Like if it's a slasher, like, okay, it's a physical thing. I got a shot. The odds might not be great, but like I can do something.
Could fight them off at least.
And then I remember like when we finally saw The Exorcist, like we weren't religious whatsoever. So it wasn't like I'm afraid of like an actual demon, but it was like learning that the leading theory is that it's like a psychosomatic, fear guilt thing. And then it's just like, oh, like, am I going to give myself possession because I'm like so afraid of The Exorcist? So,
right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah. That was my thinking when I saw The Exorcist too. I grew up Catholic, but like not super Catholic. And so when I watched it, I was no longer like really in that, but still, you never know. I don't know, man. I'm not trying to play around and find out.
Yeah.
I don't want to know.
Yeah.
So aside from Alien, which I'm guessing is still one of your favorite horror movies, what are some of your other favorite horror movies as an adult?
One of my all-time favorites is Prince of Darkness, for sure. Like,
okay.
Oh, cool.
I love that movie like a lot. I watch that movie constantly. I like Halloween. It's amazing, obviously. And that's kind of like Alien to me, where it's just like, it's the approach, it's the direction, it's everything working together that makes a script that's like, you know, like what is that actual script really? And then you watch the movie and it's like a masterpiece. And I think that's incredible. Blair Witch is one of my all-time favorite movies for sure. Still scares me.
I love Blair Witch. As you'll find out when we talk about your movie, I'm a huge found footage person. And so I'm very stoked.
Sweet. I'm just like totally like blanking. And like Lake Mungo again is like totally a favorite.
Lake Mungo. Oh, what a phenomenal
we'll definitely
movie.
like can't talk about The Strings without talking about Lake Mungo for sure, because that was sort of like the driving force behind like what kind of scary we were hoping to make The Strings, essentially.
Wait. Oh my gosh, I had not ever made that like connection in my head, but I definitely see that a lot. Like you have that dread in The Strings. But before we get ahead, since that's what we're kind of talking about The Strings now, can you tell our listeners a little bit about The Strings, what it's about?
Sure, it's about Catherine. She's a musician who has just broken up with a boyfriend and her band, which was doing pretty well before that. She goes to her aunt's cottage on the shores of Prince Edward Island in the middle of winter to like sequester herself and kind of start from scratch, essentially, with like a new approach to her music, and work on a couple of new songs and just get away from everything and hopefully like recharge creatively. And then it turns into a ghost movie. She and a photographer go to a place with like a violent, dark history, and something seemingly follows Catherine back to the cottage, and she starts to kind of lose it and start questioning about what she's seeing and what she's feeling, and it all goes badly. For everyone.
It sure does.
It does. It sure does.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. And so, Tegan Johnston, who plays Catherine, performs all of her own music. An incredible performer. Her music is so haunting, and it's just incredible. And I want to listen to her music all of the time, forever. But so how did you kind of get connected with Tegan and start working with her on this project?
So Tegan and I had made 2 music videos together at that point.
Okay.
I had done a music video for like a emo band that featured one of her friends doing like a singer-songwriter kind of verse in it. So I think she saw like an Instagram post about that music video and reached out about doing some for her. And yeah, we just did really small, low-budget videos, essentially just her and I and a camera. And I just thought we worked really well together, essentially. And that's how we came to be acquainted. And then I had been thinking about doing a project at our family cottage in Prince Edward Island. And then one day, like, it just sort of clicked together that it might make sense to... At first, I was going to do a visual artist, like a painter or something like that. But I didn't really know. And it was like kind of on the back burner while I was trying to get another bigger project off the ground, which is slow and painful. So then when Tegan and I did the second music video, it was like a wintry one, had a bunch of fake blood in it. And it was just like a lot of fun to do it. And then at one point it just clicked. It was like, oh, like maybe let's just put this together as a feature and get it done. And just kind of snowballed from there. It happened pretty quickly for sure.
Cool.
Was that filmed at your family cottage? Is that?
Mm-hmm. I spent like every summer there growing up.
Wow. It has like, it feels like a character in the movie. And there's definite, like this movie, I was rewatched it again this weekend, and I was reminded about like it's a perfect winter movie because it feels so cold outside of that house.
Yeah.
The scene of where she's like staring. I think it might be on it looks like a dune in a desert, like a frozen dune, but I think it's like on the beach potentially. And just the way that the coldness sort of seeps into the picture, it's fantastic.
Sweet. Yeah. Like, and I had never been there in the winter. So we had like, and it's, 1900 kilometers. It's a 2 days drive away in the summer. So like, the whole project itself was like, let's get all these things and like hope for the best. And like, it's either going to be a disaster or like, maybe it's going to be really special. And like, it was both for sure, because it was not an easy movie to make. Absolutely. But I don't know. I think it was just the right movie to make at the time. Like, I knew the architecture of the house, like, so I was able to write for it, like, specifically, which I think if we had just showed up at some, like, rental property, I think things would have been a lot more generic because I wouldn't know the layout, and, you know, we would have been watching horror movies there as a child, like, so I was afraid of that cottage already, for sure.
Oh.
And certain things, like, had happened, like the scene with the painting on the wall, like that happened to me when I was staying in the basement there.
Oh,
so
wow.
Like that's why it's like such a kind of weirdly specific scene in that movie, but we just had to put it in there because it happened there, and it like always stayed with me for sure.
One of my favorite scenes of the movie is the one at night where she's looking around with her flashlight in bed. And then, you know, things just sort of progress from there without giving things away. But like, there are some really strikingly haunting moments in this film that I think they're so well done.
Thanks. Like,
I love the scene. I mean, not to spoil anything, but she's running through the house and you see the lights through the windows and whatnot. And it seems like such a small thing, but it's so effective at like establishing how kind of confined that place is, but also like how terrifying it is, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And like some of that is kind of just accidents when you have no money or time, because like the plan was to run through the house with her, and it was like we just couldn't do that. So it was like the idea was like, oh, like let's just show the movement with the flashlight beam like moving through that house instead, and like then we only have to do one shot essentially. But then you end up with something that, you know, it wouldn't be in most movies because that's not the way, you know, it is natural to cover something like that. But
well, I feel just thinking about this that like a lot of this movie feels like we're sort of almost voyeuristic looking in on her as she's in very intimate moments of making music and that kind of and you know, there's a scene where she's in the bath, and it feels like very intimate. And so that kind of pulled back moment still feels like we are a voyeur watching this on the outside, like maybe we are the ghosts watching her do this. And it just, I don't know, it really worked for me, particularly this last time I watched it.
Awesome.
So that's fantastic that like, it's like a limitation of budget that ends up causing the scene that has stuck in my mind since I saw it last year.
Like, that's definitely like, I'm glad you picked up on it. Like that was my approach, like, kind of directing it, was to start off like very objectively and like avoid any kind of like in your face like music video-y kind of thing, and just have it be like voyeuristic or like a fly on the wall, and then slowly get more and more like closer to her subjective kind of like experience of what's happening. Yeah, that was definitely the way that I wanted to approach it.
This is her first role, right? Other than, I guess, in her music videos, because she's more of, from what I understand, more of a musician. So how did she find this? Is she going to be in more stuff? Does she have a acting bug in her, do you think?
I think she kind of always has. I know like she did stuff growing up, I believe, like was in school and theater and stuff like that. But it is her first scripted role as far as I know.
Okay.
I think she's like enjoyed it a lot, yeah.
She's very charismatic.
Yeah,
she definitely commands the camera.
Absolutely. That's like when I was editing, because I edited the music videos too, and I was like, all I need is like 80 minutes of this and like a couple of jump scares, and like it's going to be good.
Cool. So Ryan, we talked about your horror history and about the strings, but what movie did you bring with you today for us to discuss?
So my pick was the 1998, I believe, TV movie Alien Abduction: Incident in Lake County. I believe it's the most common name of this film.
So, for those of you unfamiliar, we'll give you a brief synopsis. After a mysterious blackout, a son goes to investigate and captures footage of actual aliens. When the aliens follow him and his brothers back home, all hell breaks loose. And just for context, everybody, this is a remake of the McPherson Tape from 1989, directed by the same director, Dean Alito. Alito? Is that how you say his name? I'm terrible with that, but... Alioto,
maybe?
Yeah. So this is his remake of the McPherson Tape, which is fascinating. But before we get into all of that, Ryan, I want to hear why you picked this movie, what terrified you about it. Like, give us your horror story about Alien Abduction incident in Lake County.
So, and like, I didn't go back and like double check any of this because I figured like this scar of this movie is more important than the reality of what happened. But
yes, absolutely.
I had not seen it in whatever 20 plus years before rewatching it for this. But from what I remember, one random weekday, my dad came home from work with a VHS copy of what I thought was some type of like special news broadcast about UFOs. And I don't really remember like if he was trying to trick us or like if maybe he didn't even know really what it was. But I think if one of his coworkers was just like, you guys, you should check this out, like show it to the kids, maybe something like that. And so it was like, it wasn't one of our big weekend watches that I've been like looking forward to. It was just like, here's this. And I believe there's like a multiple different versions of it. I think the first version we watched was just a television hour, which kind of added to the like the television special vibe of it. I think it was like 44 minutes, 45 minutes, something like that. And yeah, I think after dinner, just popped it into the VCR and it destroyed us. It's a found footage movie about aliens. I believe I was 10 or 11 when I saw it, and I had no context what found footage was. I didn't know people could pretend to make a movie look like a home video. It was just above questioning for us. It was just like, oh, here's people getting attacked by aliens in their house. And it's like, I live in a house. Right. I'm going to be attacked by aliens for sure.
So you thought it was real, right?
I did. Yeah. And then like, I think the copy we had, there was end credits, and then that wasn't enough. We were like, no, like it's too real. It's just like, it was just too much. It's just too like at the time it seemed like too mundane to be fake, I guess.
Yeah.
Rewatching it now, I feel that way about the original, but now like it is kind of what it is. But back then, yeah, when we watched it, it was just devastating.
Yeah. I'm remembering, I never saw this movie until this watch, but I do remember growing up in the 90s when there was sort of like a resurgence of alien like talk, and it was accompanied with things that were being presented as real. So there was the thing we never had cable, and I think this aired in the States on UPN, which was a cable channel. So I never saw it. I'd never heard of it, but I do remember watching Alien Autopsy on Fox one night. And it was like this big thing of like Alien Autopsy, fact or fiction. And it was, being narrated by the guy from Jonathan Frakes, I think was his name, who was in like Star Trek: The Next Generation, and he's hosting it. And they had like people that I was familiar with, because if I remember correctly, because I have not looked this up, but I think it was Stan Winston was on talking about how there's no way this could be faked, and there's all this kind of stuff going on. And I just remember this time period being full of stuff like this. Unsolved Mysteries had a ton of alien type stuff on it. There's this movie that we're talking about now. That was such a huge fascination in the 90s, and people thought it was real.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know if it's kind of like a X-Files thing rubbing off on, or maybe even X-Files was just part of that, also responding to the same zeitgeist, I guess. That was, I don't know. I wasn't old enough to perceive anything like that.
Right.
Didn't know.
Did they have, did you ever see Alien Autopsy? I was wondering if,
I saw
you
a
grew up in
version
Canada,
of it,
right?
yeah. And I feel like that's one of the things that's maybe there's a couple different era versions of that as well. And I believe our dad randomly showed us that at some point too.
I remember seeing that but like very piecemeal. And I have a very specific memory. There was a game called Alien Autopsy where like you could perform your own autopsy on like an alien body.
Oh yeah, and they had like goo and stuff in it, right?
Yeah, and that scared the shit out of me because like I don't know what was happening in my little brain because I was terrified of aliens. Like I was like, aliens are coming for me, and like I read obsessively about alien abduction stories, so I'd know like what to expect from alien abductions. Like I was like obsessed and terrified of aliens. And so that terrified me. I don't know why, like a game, but I think it was like the connection of the show Alien Autopsy with that game somehow is like, it's too real. I can't have this, like, even if it's a game, it's like too much of a tangible piece of evidence of like, conducting an alien autopsy. And that got into my head. And like, I was also terrified of the X-Files too. So like that era, I was like in 1998, I was pretty young, but like still, like aliens were just like an obsession for a very long time. But I never saw that. I never saw this until like today. But I'm surprised I didn't because I love alien abduction stories.
Yeah, I was curious when I was going to pick it, because I knew that you were super into found footage. So I was wondering if it had kind of resurged.
So I love the McPherson Tape.
Yeah.
So like I've seen the McPherson Tape, which this is like revamped version of, and I own it because they sold it from Vinegar Syndrome and now it's available to watch like on Shudder, right? Shudder.
Yep.
And so I loved that, and this I actually liked even more than the McPherson Tape. I was interested to see like what the differences were going to be and like how it was going to be different. And this one, I think you had like talked about it, right? You said the first one's very mundane. It very much feels like it's a birthday party. And it just feels like a bunch of people hanging out and talking, like shooting the shit. And then aliens happen. And I love that. But this one feels a little bit more purposeful. Like it's a little bit more like scary movie, like trying to be a little bit more of a scary movie. But I also think they add a lot of really interesting emotional like beats for this movie because it's a Thanksgiving movie. So happy Thanksgiving, everybody. And
yeah, perfect timing. And this movie, I don't know about y'all, but I have had some pretty traumatizing Thanksgivings. I have a crazy family, and Thanksgiving is always both amazing and a nightmare when alcohol gets involved. And so, like, you know, the vaguely racist relatives that I unfortunately have and, like, kind of have, like, this experience, like, with, and this will bring that up, and the, like, whispering about someone's, like, alcohol, like, how much alcohol they drink and like needing to talk to them about that. Like it just captures the very awkward vibe of Thanksgiving, which is a holiday I love, but also have a very weird history with. And I really off the bat liked this movie and how it captures like the awkwardness of Thanksgiving and how it's a great time to be with family, but then all of the weird family dynamics that happen, especially after a trauma, because this is after their father has passed away. So everyone's super weird about all of this. Like their mom is drinking again. Everyone is just like on edge and tired and sad. And so I don't know, like this movie about aliens to me captures those dynamics in a really fascinating way that makes it feel like a home movie with a family that is just having a hard time. So I don't know. I really liked that kind of capturing of the family dynamic of Thanksgiving. It's not just all happy times. There's a lot of weird intricacies going on there.
Yeah, it's definitely, I watched both of them back to back today. So I have a bit of a migraine from like 2 hours and 47 minutes of like found footage family screaming and loud shushing. But it's very interesting to watch them back to back. Like I think the first one is really cool because it's like a pure like found footage, like it's like the most purest form of it because it doesn't seem like it's aspiring to adhere to any kind of like storytelling, like really whatsoever.
No. It's literally just like we're at a birthday party and we're just gonna like record it for posterity for our family. Like there's no reason for me to be filming other than it's a birthday party. There's no story. It's just a birthday party.
Yeah. And then the second one, like as soon as you watch it, it's like, oh, like it's a found footage horror movie compared to the first one. So like the lightning shows up in the sky like 3 minutes in and it just like kind of gets going.
It does so fast. I was like, oh, okay, we're really just jumping right the fuck into the aliens and like to what's going on. But like, again, they still like establish the family dynamics in a really fascinating way so quickly. And then all of a sudden, like, all right, there's lightning. Like there's something going on. Also, the fuses are totally blown and the power's out. Like, uh-oh.
I did want to make a comment because talking about how the first one had like no real plot or anything like that. I love that because what this one does is it intersplices with experts, and using that with quotation marks, talking about this movie, which I want to get into a little bit later about that format. But the one that killed me was Damien Hawkins, filmmaker, who is played by Dean Aliato, the director of this movie. And he's talking about how it takes a lot to scare him. The tape unnerved me. And he's like, there are clearly no actors. The family members are not working off a script. There's no plot. It's not lit. Like he is literally talking about everything about the McPherson tape in particular that I remember about watching that movie. And I love that he says, if it's a hoax, I should have been the one to direct it. And I just like, okay, I see what you're doing.
I know, I was dying. I was like, this is a nice little tongue-in-cheek moment here. But I will say, those expert intersplices were so weird. Like, I guess in the version I watched, like on the YouTube link that you sent us, because y'all, this is not a super easy movie to find, so it's available on YouTube. It starts off like a found footage movie. There's like a weird intro. And then all of a sudden it like freeze frames and fades out. And I'm like, wait, what? And then the sheriff comes in. I think it's like the first one. He's like, I don't know, just terrifying tape. And I was like, wait, what is that? And I was like, oh, are we going to get like a breakdown of things from like a lot of experts? And not really. Like, it's so bizarre. Like, no, it's just no real rhyme or reason.
It took me a while to realize that those are probably where they cut to go to commercial breaks.
Oh,
and so they froze. And then it took me forever to realize that. I'm like, this is really breaking up the action. And that is my one complaint about this film.
Outrageous.
Seriously.
I'm so into it. And then it's like, and then it's like, we're going to have the people come in and talk. And I'm like, no, this is like building up to something really exciting. And it took me so long. I was like, why are they doing this? They are ruining this like momentum. And then I realized, oh, this is where they're cutting to commercial. And then the talking head is bringing us back into the movie, presumably.
Oh my God. And like this program contains graphic imagery. That was so funny. Cause I was like,
does it?
It does. Does it?
It's like literally they picked the worst throughout all 95 minutes. Like, here's the best part of the movie. Like, we're gonna ruin it.
I know.
Here's the best part of the movie. The best one's at the end, which, like, spoiler alert, is like the little girl's like, Renee's dead, and it's just like commercial break.
I know. I was like,
what? Oh man. But
oh my God. But yeah, I just thought those were like those interstitials were. I was like, oh, it's gonna be like a Last Broadcast type of thing, because the Last Broadcast is like from that era, and that's like a it's like pseudo documentary format. And I was like, oh, okay, like this isn't what I was expecting. It's definitely like veering away from the McPherson tapes. Not really, but I guess maybe like I wonder that was like they were doing that for TV, like you said, Terry, to like bring you back in from commercial break. Like that made more sense to kind of have those talking heads. It's weird. It's a very weird addition that like doesn't make much sense, but like.
But I also think that was the time, the time period too, because like they honestly were trying to say that this was real, right? When it first came out, like they were trying so hard to like position this as sort of the next Alien Autopsy. And so it made sense in that aspect to have the talking heads, because it's like, hey, remember that creepy Alien Autopsy tape? This could be, those aliens. Like that's how it felt to me.
Yeah,
and that's like, probably why I think they intersplit.
Yeah, they cue it up like because there's like the text crawl going up with like the narrator, and then it's like Alien Abduction. Did it happen? And it's like
right.
So it's like not quite. It's like set up as like a TV special and stuff. But
the following footage, if real, could be the most important evidence ever.
But I'm at a loss for why they would choose to destroy all the tension every time they build it, when it's like, why wouldn't you cut to those, like, to cover up kind of the more boring parts and like
the more boring aspects?
That's a choice.
I don't think this was made for television. Like, it doesn't feel like it was made for television. It felt like it was like a 90-minute movie that is now being kind of, oh God, how are we going to put this on TV? Where are we going to put these breaks? And the breaks have to come at specific times. That's really how I really don't think they were really thinking about how it was going to play on television.
There's some interesting like IMDb trivia on it, because I guess like they did a table read. It was supposed to be feature length, and they did a table read, and it was like 45 minutes or something. So a bunch of it is like very last minute, including I think the framing device was like a way to just beef up the running time of it.
Oh, that makes sense.
And then, like, ironically, like, it was cut down to a 45-minute TV hour, and it included those interstitials anyway.
Weird.
And, like, so, yeah, it's the version I saw, I believe, was the TV hour version, which includes, like, most of all the scary parts except for the ending. Because when I saw it as a kid, it ended with Tommy in the bedroom being frozen by the alien. And that was it.
Okay.
It just stopped.
Okay, I didn't have, like, them walking into the kitchen.
No, they didn't have the, like, remake
that shot
from the McPherson tape. I don't believe, because I don't really remember that until I watched it.
Okay.
Yeah, I was looking on Wikipedia, and because the version that is on YouTube is the alternate ending extended version, and so I was like, ooh, I bet it actually would be creepier the way it ended with Tommy, because it's, according to Wikipedia, Tommy drops the camera and stands frozen in trance-like state. The tape stops. Yeah. The family and their guests have not been seen since. Like, I feel like that is much more of a mic drop moment than what we got when they extended it, personally.
Yeah, I like both scenes for sure. Yeah, I don't know. It's like it worked, because when we were kids, like, that ending, especially, like, as, you know, I would identify automatically with, like, the youngest person there who's not a toddler. So, like, to see that teen, like, get frozen was horrifying. It was
well,
really
and the
scary.
movie is from his perspective, because he's the one, you know, with the camera. So it definitely kind of puts us in his shoes. And I can imagine if you were a kid in particular being like, oh, I am Tommy, I'm holding this camera, I am in this, and this is my story. I could see for sure. I was also thinking about when you were talking how your father came home with this VHS. I was thinking about how that is something that I don't think we really get a whole lot of in 2021, where it's like someone comes home with this tape and you don't know what's going to be on it. And I thought about this in particular with the McPherson tape originally, because that, from what I understand, was kind of circled like around on VHS tapes. And that's how people saw it and learned about it back then. And it just, there's something dangerous about that. Just coming home and you have like a VHS tape of who knows what, and we're going to sit down. Who knows if it's real? Who knows what you're going to get? And that kind of adds to the, I don't know, the mythology of watching a movie at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like, if you were college age or something and that tape was floating around campus, it would be like the first original one, because, like, it's so believable. And back then, like, there were no real special effects like that anyway. Like, I think it would have been horrifying to just be handed that tape and be like, oh, check this out.
Well, like, the McPherson tape had such a weird history too, because, like, it was made and it didn't get really picked up, but then the director found out that, like, people were watching it at, like, conventions, and people were talking about it like it was an actual document of an abduction. Like, people legitimately thought it was real. Like, it was such a weird organic found footage, like, phenomenon situation, which I think is so fascinating, that, like, it was completely just like, I was like, oh, whatever, I made it and it's like not happening. And then all of a sudden people were like, oh no, this is real footage. And like, it was in what I think it was Unsolved Mysteries. Like it took on its whole this like life of its own for a while. And then that's why I think it's so interesting that they remade it for this like Alien Abduction TV movie. And I just think that's like, the history is so fucking fascinating about that. And like about found footage, just again, this was an era like where found footage wasn't really quite a thing yet. Like, this was 1998. This was before Blair Witch Project. So like we hadn't gotten that big boom of like, oh, this is like what found footage can be. And I mean, that obviously had a huge, like, the huge viral marketing campaign and everything. But this is like such a precursor to that, especially because there is that really intense monologue scene towards the end where Tommy puts the camera down in the bathroom and is talking to the camera and is like, we're not going to live through the night. Like, I'm so sorry. And like, he's like a kid. He's like a 16-year-old kid. And it's so harrowing. It's a precursor to the Heather Donahue iconic monologue from Blair Witch Project. And you're like, oh, they definitely watched this movie and were like, we have to have something like this, because like, it's so upsetting. Especially if you think it's real, like you are watching someone's like final words before they die. And like, that is so fucking like terrifying to watch. Like the fear in that person's eyes. And even if you like, it's not, I know that it's not real, it's still really emotionally intense, especially because this is like a home video, and it just pumps out that kind of emotional intensity of the film so much and makes it all the more kind of upsetting and sad, not just scary, but like really sad. And I know it's interesting, it was kind of cool to see it here and be like, oh wow, like this is Blair Witch Project before Blair Witch Project happened, because all of the time we're always like, oh, that was from people took that from the Blair Witch Project, but it's kind of cool to see something like the Blair Witch Project took that from there.
I mean, it literally, I guess it doesn't check all the boxes. It like essentially creates almost every single found footage, like except for night vision. It literally has like everything that we associate with found footage, but
yeah.
It was sort of this lost artifact since, it didn't play Sundance. It was just like this weird UPN show that some people taped when it was on and some people watched. But
yeah,
it's pretty wild how, like, you could, like, I feel like a lot of people, if they watch it for the first time, it might not work because it might seem cliche, but it's like, no, it's not. It's like, this is the kind of where it came from.
Kind of revolutionary, actually. Like, this is like one of the beginnings of found footage. Like, the McPherson tape is definitely like very much a beginning of found footage. And then there's like Ghost Watch. That has a lot. Like, Ghost Watch is in the night, like 1992, and there's a couple others. But it's like we're finally kind of finding these artifacts, like you said, Ryan, of what like the precursors to that. And I love that because it's like found footage isn't new. There's a lot more of it now, but it's not new. And there were people really experimenting with this format in so many different ways. And I think a lot of those like direct-to-TV kind of specials and movies are always discredited a little bit. But it's nice to kind of have this resurgence of like, oh no, like these specials were really fucking people's heads. Like they were on TV as real. Like it wasn't like a movie.
Yeah.
Like people were like, oh, here's a special that's real. Like that is fucked up. Like pretty fucked up. Like Ghost Watch, pretty fucked up. Like people thought that was happening, and that's crazy. But like, could we get away with that now? I don't know if we could, but like it would. But I don't even know like it would be possible because we'd all be like, "You're fucking with us." Like I feel like we would be. We can't be fooled as easily as we used to be able to.
If I saw Ghost Watch as a child, I would have expired. I would have just passed away because it's like
ceased to exist. It's like I can't do this. It's scary.
It ceased to be.
I like saw it like 4 or 5 years ago for the first time, and it was still scary. But if I had been like 10 when I saw that, it would have been over for me. I also would have passed away. I've been like, it's over. It's real. Oh, Terry, you should watch it. I think it's really good. I think it's really fucking
It was
creepy.
on Shudder for a bit, and now it's not. And I missed when it was on.
There is like a BFI DVD of it, I think, on eBay.
Oh, is there?
It might be like region locked or something, but it's pretty cool that it's kind of out there officially now. It's good stuff.
So, Mary Beth, you're talking about how you don't know if we could have something like this happen today. And I'm just thinking about how this and Blair Witch in particular it was the perfect time for them, because like when I was looking up information about this movie, and there was debate over whether it was a hoax or not, and it was happening on internet chat rooms and bulletin boards online. And so like I'm seeing that, and I remember at the time when Blair Witch came out, that was a similar thing that was happening before like it was discovered it wasn't, is that people online were doing theories about it. And what I thought was interesting about this is that apparently someone did an interview with the Lake County Sheriff's Department, and they said there's no one named McPherson living in Lake County at the time. And so like that's kind of how it sort of crumbled. But the show was played in New Zealand with a disclaimer that its authenticity was still a topic of dispute in the United States, and they cut the final credits so that no one knew that there were actors in it.
That's awesome.
Wow.
But that's like what I think that's what they did. And I was thinking about that in particular with Blair Witch and how they want, because we talked about Blair Witch on the show before. And my particular memory about that was seeing a sort of documentary, quote unquote, that was playing on Sci-Fi that was like purporting to be this sort of like background story about before the movie came out.
Oh, that's right.
This was sort of what they did, is they played with audience expectations and got away with a lot of stuff that I don't think anymore you could get away with.
Was that Curse of the Blair Witch?
It was,
It's on Tubi right now, actually.
Is it really?
At least up here in Canada.
It terrified me.
I actually have it on VHS because we were obsessed
Do you really?
with Blair Witch 1 and 2. Like we disintegrated those VHS tapes just watching them.
You've probably heard this because you listen to the podcast, Ryan, but I live right near Burkittsville, Maryland. I grew up around here.
I live like That's awesome.
45 minutes from Burkittsville, and so that movie fucked me up because I was like, I can't do this. Like, I went to camp every summer in the woods, not near Burkittsville, but I was like, I don't give a shit. Like, I don't care if it's not in that, if it's like North Maryland, beside, like, not this way. Like, I was like, I can't. It was bad. But I live really close.
It's like, I guess it's inevitable. Like, when that movie came out, I kind of grew up in we had like a lot of woods. It was like a pretty suburban city, but we were kind of backstopped by this escarpment covered in woods. So like right after that movie comes out, of course, there's like rumors that there's a house somewhere here or there. You can go find it.
Right.
And so we just would like go try to find it when we were kids, and like it was scary, but
we had a fucking crazy, creepy house behind our elementary school in the woods. So after I saw Blair Witch, I was like, absolutely not. Like, this is not going to happen. And yeah, it wasn't as creepy, but still pretty rundown and creepy. So it was just like too much. Not that I saw, but I wouldn't go inside. I refused. I think there was always rumors like, oh, I found a dead body in there. Like, everyone always had like some horror story of like a horrific thing they saw in there.
Yeah.
I never did it. I was too chicken shit. I couldn't. I was like, I'm not tempting fate. I don't want to find out. Like, I don't need to know.
Oh, no.
Like, I have watched enough horror movies at the age of 12 to know that if I go in that house, I'm not coming back out of it. So.
We were kind of like sadists when we were kids. We saw Exorcist and it was like, get the Ouija board, like Captain Howdy, like we're finding this guy.
That was me.
And it was always like a chicken thing, right? It's like if you were alone, you're not going to do that, but you're like with a bunch of other kids, so like you have to. Or
egging them on.
I remember being in our friend's basement that was had the sliding mirrored closet doors, and doing Candyman like when we were there in elementary school.
With you?
And just like turning the lights on and off while you're saying it, and it's like 16 feet of mirror paneling or something. We were
beautiful.
No, I don't. You know what? I can't do it. But I'm glad that you did. But I can't even do it now. I won't do it.
Oh, I could very easily.
Yeah,
we could do it right now, Mary Beth. This is sort of like a Black Mirror.
Fuck you.
Okay, but so
Sorry.
one of the things that this
back to the movie that we're supposed to be talking about.
No, but one of the things I really do like about this film is the way that they stage some of the alien encounters. The scene where like the camera is, I can't remember if it's sitting down on the table and you see like an alien run past the window, for instance, that sort of like background type thing. I love when movies do that. And I think that the reveal of the like alien up close where poor Tommy, and this was so relatable, the idea that like, he's so scared that he peed his pants. And so he goes upstairs and he puts the camera down and goes and changes his pants. And then when he picks up the camera and turns, the door closes, the alien is there, and you get like this brief close up, like really VHS quality. So it's terrible. And that actually benefits the fact that I don't think it was probably a very good looking alien, but what we see is enough to be haunting.
Yeah.
And it's like a big camera filling face of this gray alien.
Yeah. The one in the bedroom was, that was too much. That was like, it's so well done too. Yeah. Because, they could have done that scene and it could have been dumb and it could have not worked at all, but it's handled really well. It's really scary. The amount that you see when it closes the door is just like perfect.
And then it's just pitch black. I'm curious what you thought when you first saw this, if that moment stuck out to you.
Yeah, that was it. Like, and that was when we watched it, that was like the ending. So like that was the scariest part, I would say. Other than like I said, when I rewatched this for the podcast, I hadn't seen it since 98 or maybe 99 or something. And it's like some of those scenes are seared into my brain. Like, I couldn't believe like the recall, like when the shot where he pans down because he peed his pants, like that's like trauma, like burned into my head. I remember that. And then when you see the foot go into the bathroom window, like if you would ask me to draw like what that shot looks like, I would have been able to draw exactly it, because when we were kids, that was just like the fact that it's in the house already. It was just like so scary for sure. Oddly enough, it's like not an alien shot, but I remember maybe even the scariest part is when the ball of light just end somebody. Because I'm like, that's cheating.
Oh, yes.
Like, wait, you're telling me I could just be like hanging out and then a ball of light could just like come into my living room and just like kill me? Like, you can't do anything about that. Like, so I was really afraid that I would be killed by a ball of light. The version I saw, I believe she just passed out and, it was 45 minutes. They don't have enough time to go back to her like 6 times like they do in this version. But man, where they take it in this feature version is like so dark.
Just frothing.
Yeah,
what the fuck?
Slowly expires like on a couch in front of her whole family. It's brutal. And then
like
that
the little girl
like,
just being like, she's dead. Like,
she's
Jesus.
Dead. Yeah. I also don't remember them playing up the whole like possessed kid thing, which was one of my favorite things when I rewatched it. I was like, oh, that's another one of those things that's like, now it's a total cliche, but back then, like, that's really cool. I think like having like an inside person trying to get them to do whatever the alien wants. I thought that was really sweet.
Yeah, like she has like that transition where all of a sudden she says things like, you shouldn't be doing that, Daddy. You shouldn't be going out there. That's not a good idea. Like, so matter of fact in her statements about like the bad things that are about to happen, but no one listens to her because she's a little kid. But she's like, I'm telling you the truth. Like, very matter of factly letting you know what's about to go down. And you're not going to listen to me, and that's fine, but that's your funeral, basically. And she's, like, in cahoots with them at the end, where that's, like, implied that she lets them in the house.
Yeah, she's totally alien possessed, for sure. Like, I love the shot where they go upstairs and she's trying to move that bookcase. To me, I was like,
oh, yeah.
That's incredible.
Yes. Oh, it's so fucking incredible.
That's amazing. And it's, like, that's what I love about found footage is because, like, I don't know, you can make that shot so scary and mean so much, but visually, like, it's just a little kid trying to move a bookcase, but it's so
There's
scary.
Like so much more meaning behind it, which is I love found footage.
Do you?
Shut up. Shut up.
The movie also kind of has like an almost cosmic horror element to it too, where there's the scene where like all the power's out, the circuit breakers are fried and everything, and then the lights come on and the blender starts working and the fridge starts pouring out ice and water, and like things are just happening all around that should not happen, and no one knows how to deal with it. And it's like the world is turned upside down. Things that should not be working are working. And insanity is happening in this household. And I kind of really dug that watching it as an adult.
Yeah, totally. The appliances going on and off is awesome. The nosebleeds too, like,
oof.
Oh yeah.
The other script that I have that I wrote like before the strings, like literally has like a nosebleed scene, like a mass nosebleed scene, like because of watching that movie 20 years ago. It's just like, I don't like, it's kind of, people overuse it now, like in Stranger Things and stuff, where it's just like nonchalant. But like, think about if you were with 6 people and everybody got a nosebleed.
They just started bleeding. Yeah.
Nosebleeds. I get terrified of nosebleeds. If I have a nosebleed, I'm like, nope, no, thank you. Something bad's happening. Like there's a ghost. I'm dying. Whatever.
Yeah.
Like, yep. Something so simple and like so kind of seemingly benign is also incredibly terrifying.
Absolutely. Definitely.
So I know that she's an alcoholic, and I know that it's not supposed to be funny, but I loved the mom. I love this entire movie. She's running around with a full glass of wine. And every single time you see her, the moment she's like going to get low, it's the next scene, it's topped off again. Like it's a mood. It's honestly a mood. And to be perfectly honest, if this all shit was happening, I would be like, give me the wine. Let's just start drinking because there's nothing we can do about it. But I love, there's the moment, it's now kind of a cliche as well in found footage, but the low battery warning on the tape, and he puts it down. He's like, my battery's almost dead, and mom's like, oh, finally.
Yeah, they're like, fuck
she's
off.
just like, I can't handle this anymore. I'm so done with you and your found footage camera.
Yeah, the grandma with the wine when they're outside is like the best whip pan like of all time. They're like running around outside, lit only with flashlights, and like pans back, and the mom's just like
there with her glass of wine,
filled to the very top.
My notes were full of like, mom still has the wine.
Yeah,
exactly. And like, they have these like really intense conversations at the beginning where they're just like, mom's drinking again because dad passed away, like, and they're yelling at the younger brother Tommy, because there's two older brothers who are like, you should have told us, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, what am I supposed to fucking do? And he's like 16, and they're trying to tell him to fix his mother's alcoholism and like get her to go to support groups. And it's just like really tragic and so sad. And then you do kind of laugh because you're like, well, I would also be having a full fucking glass of wine if I was in this scenario. I'd be like, there's nothing else I can do. But like, they set such a like really tragic tone at the beginning of this with the family situation, with the brother, like the dynamic between the brothers. But then they also have the brothers being incredibly racist, or one of the brothers being incredibly racist.
Yes. Which I don't know if that subplot is like was in the TV version, because when I watched that, I was like, that's okay. I mean, I guess like it sells the whole like Thanksgiving thing, but it's hard to watch, that's for sure. With doing it on found footage is just like gut wrenching.
Yeah, and when Kurtz is like, you tell this asshole, and he pauses and he's like, what'd you really want to say? I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe this is happening.
I know, I was like,
this is a nightmare even without the aliens coming in.
Yeah.
This is a horror movie. And like the way that Kurt's the older brother, and like when the sister brings in her boyfriend who is black, his name is Matthew, he's just like, oh, hello, and is like very awkward around him. And then when they go outside, he's like, she should have told us he was black. And the other brothers are like, why the fuck do you care? Like, what does it matter? Like, what would that have changed? And it was just so weird. And I guess, like, again, like you said, it adds that kind of like awkward family dynamic of Thanksgiving, but like just very bizarre. Like the one black person in this movie is just a weird racial tension object. Just bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
This movie's weird. But I love it.
I also really liked how the footage gets scrambled whenever there's alien presence around.
Yes.
It was such a cool little moment. Did that happen? I can't remember. Did that happen in McPherson Tape, or is that is that just with this?
I think it happens a little bit. I know at the end when there's the awesome final shot, there's like this amazing hum that just starts building when they come in the door. But I don't remember it getting like quite so pixely. I think maybe a little bit, but that they definitely do it a lot more because there's a lot more action in this one. And I like that it's not like a lot of found footage movies now, they just like do these really loud glitches that aren't even glitches that can even happen like on the digital formats that they're shooting on. So they're just kind of irksome, but yeah, the way that it just obscures it enough is really cool for sure.
Yeah, I like that too. And especially because there's like the scene at the beginning when they see the aliens for the first time, and there's like, they do like a full-on like spaceship alien reveal, which I thought like for a low-budget found footage movie, like for a made-for-TV movie, pretty great like reveal of everything going on, like the sense of scale and everything. I was pretty impressed by that whole moment. And it is terrifying because like they're using, and I love this about found footage, when like they use the camera to zoom in to see what's going on. So it's not just filming for the sake of filming, but zooming in so you can actually like perceive what's happening like in front of your face. And like they're both the background, just like, what's going on? Let me see. And like it's just like, I love it when you can just hear the scuffle but not see it, and you can just, the vibe is so panicked and frantic but also can't look away because they want to know what's going on. Oh, and then when he points the laser pointer at them, and it's just like zero.
No sound. Like I remember as a kid the two scenes with the lasers were really scary, and part of it was just silent weird red light that just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's like you said, you can't. How do you protect against that?
Yeah, that ball of light is just
the ball of light. It's mean. It's fucking mean.
Yeah.
One thing. So what I love is when movies end or have like a number in it. And I was actually going to try and call the number on air, but I googled it earlier, and it's a spam call. It's like this is a Social Security, like we're coming to your house to like, there's fraud alert, like that kind of thing. So I was like, that's unfortunate, but it does give a 1-800 number at the end. And I just, I love when movies do that.
1-800-555. So didn't have high hopes for it.
No.
Yeah. I like the lower fi, like creepier stuff. Like when she starts talking to the dead dad, like that's amazing.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
And actually in the OG tape, like when they're kind of like doing stuff and not realizing it, I think her name's Renee and the old one too, where she like just walks to the door to open it and then they like go and get her and she like snaps out of this like weird trance that she's in. I find that just like super effective. There's like no special effects. Aliens aren't even in that shot, but it's just like you're corrupted, like your consciousness is like hijacked and like
or were they hearing things?
Yeah.
Oh,
and the video
like
camera doesn't.
Oh, like the last
the
shot where
piano.
they're like, I have a headache, like stop playing, and everyone is yelling at her to stop presumably playing the piano because she's plays the piano for a lot of the film, like throughout the movie. And that was really creepy. And like, again, like your brain playing tricks on you and you not in control of your own mental faculties, like someone else is in control of you and your perception of reality. And like, fuck that.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
And Matthew and I think it's Linda start making out.
Yeah, that was definitely not
That's right.
in the version that I saw. Because when I saw that, I was like, what the hell? Like,
You're 10, you're like, no, you didn't see it when you were
like
10.
the aliens come like how many light years away? And they're just like, let's just make them make out. Not 95 minutes yet. They're just going to start kissing. I remember, I noticed today when I was like watching the old one, the sense of like doom when they're playing cards at the end is like really incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I guess because one of their husbands or boyfriends or whoever is like missing and they're like trying to like calm her to say that he's coming back, even though I'm pretty sure nobody thinks he's coming back. And then they're like, we didn't find the flashlights. Like, you know, like nothing happened to them because we didn't find the flashlights. And that kind of like ultra specific like bargaining is like such a sign of like, oh, they all know that it's terrible. Like their situation is like so grim that like they're just going to latch on to the fact that like we didn't find flashlights, like so these aliens didn't abduct them. Is like, to me, when I watched it this time, I was like, for some reason that just hit me as like so depressing.
Actually, I actually kind of laughed because I was thinking about how here's a white kind of, I don't think they're suburban, but it feels like a suburban family doing everything in their power to have Thanksgiving, regardless of the fact there's an alien invasion happening around. Because like there's multiple times where they're like, let's go chop up, have some turkey. Let's go, you know, trying to maintain some kind of like civility and some kind of like uniformity and function of the holiday while pandemonium is happening all around them. And
if we eat the
kind of
turkey,
made me laugh.
It is fine.
Yeah.
As long as we eat the turkey, everything will go back to fucking normal.
Well, it kind of reminded me of how you were talking, Mary Beth, about how this kind of encapsulates that sort of Thanksgivingness where it's like things are happening, things might be awkward, but we're going to eat this fucking meal. And that's what it kind of reminded me of.
Well, like it's like that scene in Signs. That really like the depressing scene where like they all eat dinner together and like it's like have you seen Signs, Ryan? And Mike Shyamalan's yeah. Like when they're all eating dinner together and he's like, we're gonna have a good fucking dinner, and like he starts shoveling mashed potatoes in his mouth and starts to cry, and it's just like it's too much. Like, good God, like we just want to eat our dinner and pretend everything is fine when everyone is just like slowly dying inside. And yeah,
I do think Signs might have taken from this movie a little bit too, because the shot we talked about it a little bit earlier, and so it made me think about it, and I'd been meaning to talk about it. When they're outside and you see the camera is panning up on the roof of the house, and that's when the alien has gone inside the house. I was like, because I remember in the Signs where they're looking around the house and it's like up on the roof, and that's kind of what leads to it. That, and then the alien just sort of nonchalantly walking in the background. Like, these moments kind of just reminded me a little bit like, oh, Signs might be cribbing from this a little bit.
I kind of always thought that too, for sure. And I remember like reading that like Sixth Sense was like straight up an Are You Afraid of the Dark episode that he saw on TV that is like beat for beat the same as Sixth Sense. So like, that's mid 90s. Like I wouldn't be surprised if he definitely just randomly got Incident in Lake County, and Signs is like early 2000s, right? So it's like definitely not far down the line.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, I do have a question. Have you guys ever seen a UFO? Or do you think you've seen a UFO?
I remember Krista and I, one time we were driving, one time we went to Prince Edward Island in the summer, and we were driving home on a road that had no streetlights. I remember us both seeing like a light in the sky very briefly, and then probably mostly joking, but like talking about how that was a UFO, but no like full-blown sighting that I can remember.
What about you, Mary Beth?
So there's one time, and I don't know what it was. It's a very similar story to yours, actually, Ryan. Steve, my fiance, and I were driving home from a friend's house, and it was on like a dark road. And all of a sudden we saw this like big flash and something like shoot through the sky and disappear. And I was like, that's a fucking UFO. Like, it was immediately like I thought it was a UFO because it was so fast. Like, it wasn't like a firework. It wasn't like a comet or like a meteorite. He's very logical and doesn't believe in that stuff and told me that it was definitely not a UFO, but I think it was a UFO. It was weird. It was like super bizarre. But again, like, I don't really actually know what it was, but it was just like one of those weird things that happened like at the middle of the night and you're driving home and you're like, nope, definitely something weird happened. So I don't know if it was actually a UFO. And my stepdad has claimed that he has seen multiple UFOs, is what he has told me. I don't know if he is telling me the truth or not, but
I mean, you couldn't identify it, so by definition.
It's true. Very good point. Very good point. Yeah. He used to live in California and like in Napa, and he would say like, but he was also like smoking a lot of weed at the time when he was younger. So like, I don't like, you never know like what was true.
Yeah.
And like, I went to school, I went to college in Southern Maryland, and it's near a naval base. And so I had friends who would smoke weed and sit outside in the middle of the night and like say they saw UFOs coming off the naval base. I never saw them myself, but there were lots of rumors like that going around my college that there were like UFOs like all around us because of the Navy. Never saw it, but I like to just tell that story because I think it's like spooky.
Mm-hmm. I would love to have some kind of like I've said this about the paranormal stuff. I would love to have an experience that like is infruitably, is that even the word? It's
indubitably.
Oh I can't even talk right now.
Infruitably.
Infruitably. It's infruitably. It's, impossible to discount that might have been an alien. I would love to have an experience like that. I never have. Yeah. Unfortunately.
I'm always curious. I love spooky stories and spooky weird experiences.
Same.
I love them.
Yeah.
Well, should we wrap up and give this our rating out of 5?
Sounds good.
Cool. Okay. Terry, how many little gray men out of 5 do you give Alien Abduction Incident in Lake County?
Well, this one is a very surprising movie for me because I kind of went in with very low expectations because I was like, this is a made-for-cable movie in the 90s. Today, that has a different meaning to it, but like in the 90s. And just kind of, I don't know, I wasn't expecting a whole lot, but I was really enthralled. I was incredibly annoyed every time that they would do the freeze frame and then cut to a talking head. I realized that that's because of the nature of it being a television movie, but I was because I would get so enraptured in what was happening, and then it was just like immediately just taking me out of what was of everything that was going on. Mm-hmm. So that aside, I really kind of dug this, and the acting might be a little circumspect in spots, but like, I thought it was really well done. I think probably I'm going to autopsy one of those little gray men, and I'm going to give it a 3.5, and the other half can be donated to Fox for their little 17-minute alien abduction thing. What about you, Mary Beth? How many little gray men for you?
So I am going to give this actually 4 little gray men, because I think this is an incredible found footage movie. Again, I also had sort of low expectations. I love the McPherson tape, and I was curious, but I kind of was like excited to kind of see how they took the McPherson tape, but I was like, I don't know how they could really build on that. I was very surprised how wrong I was. They really built a fascinating like family drama on top of an alien abduction story with some really terrifying moments and some great utilization of the found footage techniques before they really were like set techniques. And it's just really awesome to watch this and see how much it informed a lot of horror filmmaking just in the next like decade. And also watching this, I couldn't stop thinking about how I would have seen this as a kid and would have been fucking terrified. Like, if I had seen this at the age Ryan saw it, I would have not slept for weeks. Like, and I just appreciate, I just was in that kind of mindset, and that kind of was fun to be like, oh my God, this would have so totally scared me as a kid. This was just the kind of shit I loved as a kid to watch and like be terrified. And I loved that. So I'm giving this 4 little gray men. Ryan, you have the final word. How many little gray men out of 5 do you give Alien Abduction Incident in Lake County?
I have a feeling that 3.5 gray men sounds right. Little gray men sounds right to me as well. I could go 4 on some days. I'm sort of biased, I guess, because it did just it's seared into my brain. But I mean, for when it was made, it's it creates so many found footage boxes that we now take for granted. Mm-hmm. So I think it's undeniable. I think the confession to the camera is an A+ scene. I think it's incredible and really painful to watch in a kind of beautiful way. And yeah, I think it's interesting artifact of 1998.
It definitely is.
Oh, yeah. I agree with you there. Well, thank you so much, Ryan, for joining us to talk about Alien Abduction Incident in Lake County. Did I get it right? I think I got it right.
You
did. So, oh my gosh, I just lost my mind. Where can our listeners find you, and what do you have coming that you're able to share with listeners?
I'm on Twitter at Ryan C. Glover. That's kind of what I use most these days. Yeah, I mean, the big one is The String is now on Shudder and will be for eternity, I hope. Nothing in the immediate future outside of The Strings coming up, but hopefully more horror films that are like that.
Hell yeah.
Awesome.
I'm not good at selling myself, but...
Watch The Strings, guys. Please. But listeners,
it's really good.
You've heard from us. We want to hear from you. What was your experience with Alien Abduction Incident in Lake County? Send us an email at scarredforlifepodcast@gmail.com or reach out to us directly on Twitter. I am at MB McAndrews.
And I'm McGailey Dreadful.
And of course, don't forget to follow the podcast on Twitter at Scarred Podcast.
And please don't forget to review, rate, and subscribe.
Thank you to Eric Power for our artwork. Thank you to Sean Keller for our music. Thanks everyone for listening. Please stay safe out there, but most importantly, stay creepy.
And until next time.
As a person with a very deep voice, I'm hired all the time for advertising campaigns. But a deep voice doesn't sell B2B, and advertising on the wrong platform doesn't sell B2B either. That's why if you're a B2B marketer, you should use LinkedIn ads. LinkedIn has the targeting capabilities to help you reach the world's largest professional audience. That's right, over 70 million decision makers all in one place. All the big wigs, then medium wigs, also small wigs who are on the path to becoming big wigs. Okay, that's enough about wigs. LinkedIn ads allows you to focus on getting your B2B message to the right people. So, does that mean you should use ads on LinkedIn instead of hiring me, the man with the deepest voice in the world? Yes. Yes, it does. Get started today and see why LinkedIn is the place to be to be. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room? It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system. If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served. Hi, I'm Detective Dave. I'm Detective Dan. Together, we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood. So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished. From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th. We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.